Yeah, today I want to take the opportunity to look at how academics are engaging students in a world of distraction, and I think we all agree we all live in this distracted world. Uh, Background then for me, yes, I said Desi Tennyson, I'm learning specialist with McGraw-Hill, but these grey whiskers are somewhat like military stripes, well earned at the coal face of education over 23 years as a teacher and the last seven in a senior leadership capacity, 10 years working in the world of ed tech as an Apple professional learning specialist and as a Google education trainer. I joined the McGraw-Hill team here in July and have the pleasure of working with higher education institutions, further education colleges throughout the UK, Ireland, Scandinavia, Northeast, and Central Europe. So it's lovely to get such an insight to the range of challenges across the region. And I have to say, no matter what culture, no matter what society you're in, engagement is a common theme across the region. So McGraw-Hill have been an educational technology company with over 130 years of experience, partnering with educators from childhood through to careers across a range of subject areas and offering education for all. In our experience in the world of HE and FE, we've built strong relationships with students in the world of education, and I'll touch briefly on these three platforms and those uses later. So, as an experienced educator, I have a deep understanding of how generative or Gen Z and indeed Generation Alpha students operate, learn, push back, and more importantly, thrive. So let's take a look and let's meet Josh as an example. So Josh is a typical 18-year-old Gen Z student. He owns at least 6 digital devices. He's running 4 social media accounts. He visits the gym, works 24 hours per week in a part-time job. Josh learned to play the guitar on YouTube and is learning Spanish on Duolingo. It's safe to say that Josh is hyper connected to the world. Now let's meet John. John is, maybe we could say was, a passionate academic. His true passion lies in research, but he has to teach or deliver a course. And when he started 20 years ago, life was so much easier. Students were motivated to learn and not distracted, but he stuck with it. He used to have 100 in his lecture hall, and now it's creeping over 280. He used to have more time to pursue research and hobbies, but now he's worn out. John knows he should use technology to help him, but quite frankly, he really doesn't have the time. And so we see the challenge. How do educators square this circle? Because more students added into lecture rooms equals more marking. More students and more didactic lectures we have disengaged students. We then have the pressures of those student feedback. That's the feedback that instructors will receive at the end of a module, as opposed to the assessment feedback. And finally, then the added workload issues. Now, this isn't a new challenge or issue for the world of education. At the annual GISC conference, DigiFest in Birmingham last month, Deborah Gray, the CEO of Hull FE College, nailed it when she spoke passionately about the need for change now. And one in our panel discussions, one comment that stood out more than anything was the students that we see now want to stream education in the way they stream other consumables. They want it now, they want it in chunks, and in the way that they want to deal with it. And I think it's not just students. I think we're all in the same position. We live in this fast-paced world of Uber Eats, of Netflix. We no longer have the patience, and we no longer have the ability to focus and engage as we always would. So let's look at this TikTok culture that our students, and let's dive into those sort of the attributes of TikTok which cause the obsession with the platform. It's fast paced, It's accessible 24/7, and the algorithm only shows the videos and topics of interest, and they get instant feedback to socialize and to comment. So this has shaped the minds of our Gen Z students. They consume content that is fast, engaging, and interactive. They expect instant access 24/7, and that isn't just digital files dumped in an LMS somewhere. There's actually a massive retention rate for this dopamine-driven learning. For any of you that are learning a second language in Duolingo, you know that it will regularly check for memory decay and your understanding, and I suppose vocabulary content that you were almost forgot. This is what they're used to, and perhaps what we're all used to. And instant feedback. They don't want to have to wait on that feedback loop that is 3 weeks, 4 weeks long. Or if we look at those larger pieces in university, the final pieces, they often get no feedback except for the final grade. And more than anything, this generation love simulations and gamified learning. This is the generation of Call of Duty, of Roblox. And while in the world of FE and HE, we will rightly shine a light on academic integrity, we rarely hear of students cheating to get to the end of Call of Duty. They will never look for a cheat code that will allow them to win the Champions League in FIFA. And they will certainly not look for a cheat code to make them fluent in Chinese or Russian or French by the end of next week. So if we can genuinely engage students in simulations and gamifying learning, it will certainly help all of us. But what's the status quo? Dr. Colin Loughlin, the head of digital education in Brunel University, when he published his PhD back in 2024, actually released in 2025, you'll see the name of it there. He pulls back the curtain in his own university, pulls back the strap line of what we often say happens. And he found it difficult to escape that many staff and students believe that simply bums on seats, by simply turning up, somehow you're going to magically absorb, like mystical vapors, the academic atmosphere. And in this backdrop of steadily, or at times rapidly, increasing expectations of workload, reduction in staffing, leading to increased cohort size, how can we address the challenge of covering all of the course? Because this was something else he covered when he interviewed the lecturers. A lot of them went on to say that there was just a vast amount of content to cover. And this feeling that the best way to cover this would be through endless PowerPoints. So the ability to deliver 800 to 1,000 PowerPoint slides over 10 to 12 weeks. The question that I want to ask, and will ask on a regular occasion in my role, is how do we provide a student-centered approach, enabling students to put in time and effort to master new material without increasing workload? How do we build muscle memory and deepen engagement? Let's pull back the curtain today and look at the success of a range of academics across the region that we work with. In the world of generative AI, educational ed tech startups and general hype, we know as educators that cool technology is not enough on its own. But we have found when we add trusted and proven content alongside the deep understanding of how learning works, whether that's utilizing Bloom's, whether that's integrating the SAMR model, and the work of John Hattie's visible learning, we find that students and instructors experience true engagement. Let me introduce you to Professor Bo van der Ee. Bo is a professor of operations management at the Centre of Marketing and Supply Chain Management in the Netherlands. He's been working and partnering with McGraw-Hill for the last 8 or 9 years. A couple of years ago, he conducted a proper empirical analysis of 3 years worth of You'll see it referred to as OEI data, and that's online engagement data. So when he compared this in conjunction with students' final exam results in order to prove or disprove a correlation between practice and exam success. So in doing so, Bo used linear multiple regression and logistic regression analysis. And the results show that age and gender are not statistically significant predictors of exam grades, but that online engagement indicator is. The model, in fact, was 68% accurate in predicting which students would fail and 60% accurate in predicting which students would pass. Now, while 60 to 70% accuracy means that the model isn't a surefire way of predicting success, because some students will practice a lot but still fail, while others may not practice at all and still pass, the correlation is highly positive overall. The data showed with his students that an online engagement of 4 points, the probability of passing or failing was around 50%, while with 6 points, a student is twice as likely to pass as to fail. And for students with an engagement score of 8 or above, the pass rate is around 90%. Now, when we completed this case study, Bo mentioned that statistics always talk about averages and trends, and while there might be outliers, as a professor of a large class, what he was looking was to improve outcomes for the class as a whole. And this research showed that the OEI, i.e. practice, consistently had an impact on grade. We also found that part-time students had hugely benefited from this, and obviously part-time students tend to be more mature students coming back into study, but they certainly benefited from this approach. On this slide and on the next few slides, just point out if you want to find the full case study, if you scan any of the QR codes, it will allow you to access. I've just taken a snapshot out of all of these for today. So let's head to Dublin and look at the work of Alejandro Ramos in Trinity College. This course that Alejandro had run was a compulsory one for students of business, economics, and social sciences. 350 students in her cohort. Alejandro was well aware of the broad range of interests across her students, some of whom who had never taken a statistics course before. Alejandro had then flipped the learning with a very structured program of activities to prepare students ahead of class, as well as to consolidate learning after class. Now, it's worth pointing out for most people when we talk about flipping the classroom and flipping learning, everybody thinks of videos, and this has not been the experience of what our partners have been using. So when we talk about flipping learning, it's genuinely having people coming to class prepared for the concepts that are about to be covered or to dive deeper. On this basis, then, Alejandro dedicated class time to active learning, working through problems in small groups, even with a large cohort of 250. Alejandro, with some teaching assistants, were able to float between groups, to answer questions, to interact, and to observe common challenges that could then be addressed. So 40% of her final mark was down to continuous embedded assessment, basically completing reading challenges and assignments. So if they do the work and practice based on what Bo van der Ree had pointed out, they would pass the course, and then the added value came. Alejandro saw high engagement with pre-reading from 95% of students engaging in the first year, and when she moved this into second year, it was to 100% engagement. In terms of completion of the pre-reading, it went from 77% to 92%, and the average mark for her practice assessments or quizzes went from 54% in the first year to 67% in the second year. And this was made more remarkable, I suppose, by the fact that things become more challenging as we move on. And Alejandro found that strong correlation between quizzes and final student mark. Let's move from Ireland then to Neoma Business School in Paris. Laura is an associate professor of statistics and uses ALEX, which stands for Assessment and Learning in Knowledge Space. ALEX is a machine learning, maths remediation, and acceleration platform. It predates the release of generative AI and works on the model of machine learning developed in 1999, early 2000s. And she's been using this as a fundamental part of master's and her bachelor's statistics programs. Her cohorts are always very mixed, with varying levels of maths ability, with different subject areas, and therefore lacking technical vocabulary in the world of statistics, and, as we see across the world, increased maths anxiety. Students alternate learning independently in ALEX and come to face-to-face tutorials where new concepts are introduced and common problems as identified by ALEX are addressed. So in this world, as FE sort of embraces blended learning, this is truly a blended learning where they come to class for new concepts, but learn on their own for the remediation and the constant practice piece. 106 topics covering basic stats, an introduction of inferential analysis organized into 4 learning objectives. Students are expected to spend at least 3 hours a week and will be marked absent if they do not. ALEX is used for continuous assessment and final exam. But to further increase motivation and engagement, there's a visible class leaderboard with 3 major prizes awarded at the end of the course. The person who achieves the most in the shortest time, the person with the highest overall grade, and the most time spent in ALEX. Failure rates for Laura have declined from 12% to just 3%. And in her last cohort, over 13 weeks, 75% of her students spent more than 45 hours working on ALEX, and the average time was 63 hours. Laura passionately describes ALEX as a teaching assistant and allows international students to be exposed to technical English vocabulary. Lower dropout rates as students realise they need to engage sooner in the semester. Let's move to one of our other partners in the University of Galway. Stephen McNeena is a lecturer in economics. He teaches first and second year macroeconomics to large cohorts of over 260 students. And he first adopted Connect in his fight against a lack of engagement. But rather than throwing statistics at you, what we did was we started interviewing some of the students, really key to get feedback from students' perspective. So each year, students are asked to complete surveys for the modules they're taking, and nearly 8 in 10 students felt that the course structure and assessments supported them in meeting the learning goals of the module. For Finn McCartney, one of the learners of the University of Galway in Stephen's cohort, this rings true. He highlighted the pivot from secondary education to university was a massive change, and the functionality of regular reading assignments was mentioned by Finn as an asset to his first year experience, sharing that he was able to work at his own speed and found everything more manageable. And for somebody coming from the world of post-primary, I can certainly relate with this, where students struggle with the newfound independence, whether that be having to wash, to cook, very little learning done, but learning to live away from home and learning to step away from that highly structured system of A-level Scottish leavings or leaving cert in the Republic of Ireland. So when we analysed the feedback which Stephen kindly shared with us, these are just some of the feedback that he had received from students in his course of over 260, and they greatly valued reducing the stress levels. As with all academics, we like to ensure that research is robust and that companies' claims are challenged. So Francesco in Swansea University, first year of using Connect, he made it mandatory. Weekly adaptive assignments and problem sets each accounted for 1% of students' final grades. So students had to do the work on a weekly deadline, so it was spread out or they would lose out. Now, this is the at-risk chart that he had and was able to identify who was at risk at a very, very early stage. Now, what Francesco decided to do in his year two, to see what would happen if it wasn't mandatory. How do you keep the engagement levels? So for his second year, same materials, same instructor, no incentivization, but a strong instructor recommendation. The following year, a lot of the students didn't even register. And you can see 94% did not engage with the set materials. So now, instead of a handful of students to keep an eye on, you've effectively the whole class back in this box where you have absolutely no idea how they are doing. And so, in the case of Francesco, back to my original slide of cool technology is not enough. You need to ensure that this is the generation of reward charts, whereas parents, instead of telling somebody to clean their room, we often would have had reward charts to encourage. This is the generation who ask why and who really deeply value that incentivization, and the engagement is the key component of that. And finally, I suppose, Anshul, and you're giving instructions to a presentation for 25 minutes, brings me very close to the end. And I just value any questions or queries either in the chat. I hope that I can answer those. That's just my details if anybody wants to continue the conversation on LinkedIn or on Blue Sky or via email.